Today on the Workplace Makers podcast, we delve into the topic of resilience. We're looking at why teams and individuals are currently experiencing a resilience challenge, crisis, we could say. We don't use that word in the podcast, but what is it that is making it so difficult to just stay on top of things, to not experience burnout, and to have a rewarding and fulfilling professional and personal life? So it's a great pleasure to talk with Stu. You'll hear about his military background. You'll hear him give us some really simple and practical ways that individuals and teams can move forward with more confidence and greater certainty. Welcome to the Workplace Makers podcast, where today we're joined by Stu Darling. And Stu is a resilience coach with a business helping teams across New Zealand and other places potentially.
Totally.
We'll delve into and to face the world, the challenges that they face. So we're going to understand more about resilience. We're going to delve into what does Stu do to help teams to get on top of the challenges they're facing today. So welcome, Stu.
Thank you very much for having me. Really excited to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
And I have been looking forward to making the link between your military background and your resilience coaching. So how did one lead to the other?
Well, the first 6 weeks of military training is the whole point of it is to break individuals down from whatever part of the country they come from. In my case, I was dragged up in Scotland. So wherever you come from in the in Britain to join the British Army, your first 6 weeks is really that breaking people down so that values can be rebuilt and everyone has got that same values baseline. Right. But in order to get through that first 6 weeks, you have got to find some resilience. So that's really what we teach and we mentor and we coach is, it's not about breaking people down. It's not about, marching miles and miles and miles and, doing lots of obnoxious physical training, but it's helping people understand what is working in life, why it's not working, in order to start building a resilient framework that allows people to move forward in life.
What's interesting there is the connection or the similarity with coaching, for example, where coaching is a lot about you've got a goal, you want to achieve that, and there's something getting in the way of that. So how could we unleash the potential hidden within to realize that goal?
Yep, and that's exactly what we do. Whether we do it in one-to-one, or whether we do it online, or whether we do it within business workshops, it's very much about, right, what's the block? What's stopping you or the organization, or you within the organization, from moving forward? Because I think someone once said to me on the radio show was that we can't teach resilience, which I sort of agree with a little bit. And our program's called Rediscovering Resilience, but it's all about us in the 21st century realizing that humanity is very, very resilient. It has to have been, because if it wasn't, we'd still be licking water off the walls in caves and never stepping outside. So we are resilient as humanity, but how do we rediscover it in the 21st century in this world of instant gratification where we just want it all because we can have it all? Well, it's about, right, how do we actually realize that we are resilient as a species? So how do we be resilient as individuals?
Yeah, that's it. That's great. The historical context is fascinating. We think, what would we be like if we couldn't get through those challenges of the past? And what did you hear from leaders now and from their teams around what their current challenge is? Where are people finding their resilience is being challenged?
So I think, resilience is being challenged, and this isn't just in businesses, but resilience is being challenged because we as mammals, we as human beings have certain needs. If you go back to, and I couldn't believe it was only 1943 that Maslow wrote his hierarchy of needs, only 80 years ago. We had needs. Those needs haven't changed, but for the most part in the developed world, all of those needs are met, and we live in a world of want. And in some cases, we live in a world of expectation. So we're sitting there getting stressed because, well, I've got everything I need, but there's still more that I want. And that's a real challenge for individuals, for families, and for business leaders in dealing with just the stress of day-to-day living, because we find that being under stress, having fears, having anxieties starts because, well, we've got everything we need, but I'm still not satisfied. And those are the challenges that, that right at the base level, those are the challenges that all businesses are challenged with these days.
That's interesting. And it sounds like a gap between reality and what's possible and expectations. Do you think it's primarily an expectations gap that's driving
It
this?
is. Yeah, I mean, I spoke to our daughter's in her 20s. Doing really well with her career, and we were talking. She's got the challenge of having a dad who's also a coach, and sometimes we have one conversation, sometimes we have
You can't
the
help
other.
getting into coach mode.
And sometimes I get a phone call, sometimes I get a message to say, "Dad, I need you to be my coach today," and I go, "Okay, right, we can do that." But she said during a conversation that, "Oh, Dad, we all just live with anxiety these days," and I went, whoa, wait a minute, that's a reality now for a whole bunch of people. That reality and fear is just a thing that we have to live with. Well, no, it's not. It's, that's a reality. And the expectation has become, well, we've just got to live with anxiety. And educating and mentoring people through that to make them realize that actually, do you know what, there is a different way of doing this, is the key to actually creating growth in your Western developed society and in businesses.
And what do you see as some of the things people are doing that's contributing to that anxiety and to that difference between how they could be their resilient self?
Well, we live in a world of instant gratification. I mean, I can be driving down the street and the burger I didn't even know I wanted was cooked before I even realized I was hungry. That is the world that we have come to live in over the last couple of decades. And when it doesn't happen, and things don't just happen the way that society said it will, we begin to question ourselves. We begin to question our identity. We begin to think, well, I don't quite fit in here because I don't align with what all of those people are doing. So by beginning to lose our identity and feeling ostracized, well, we begin to listen to the voices in our heads, and we've all got them. We all become self-absorbed. And there's just the tiny little things that happen that, we decide that we're going to live differently. We decide that we're not going to watch the news. We decide, and we just move away from that conformity that the world has created. Now, conformity can be a good thing, but it can also be quite a negative thing. And that's the beginning of that downward spiral to fear and to anxiety and, and to small d depression, feeling a bit depressed. If we feel depressed for over 30 days, then we've created a habit of depression. And over 90 days, we've created a personality of depression. And that's now the challenge that the developed world's facing, in that all of these people are saying, well, I need mental health assistance, I need tablets. That's what's happening because people are beginning to question who they are, because society is so hard over on making us all conform.
Yeah, it sounds like the work around minimizing distractions would be really helpful, that people who are looking at people who are looking constantly at something that to me it seems like when we're focused, we get that chance to do deep work that's actually really satisfying and self-fulfilling. It creates this lovely confidence that you've done great work.
It totally does. And I mean, one of the biggest challenges is that we are taught to fill our time. I was on the call slightly early. I picked my phone up and was just looking, rather than just sitting here thinking, excellent opportunity to meditate and do some breathing or whatever. It's, I'll look at my phone. I was over in Wellington, the Wairarapa last week, and I left my charger for my laptop behind.
Potential crisis.
Well, Complete crisis. We sat down at the weekend to do some work, and I'm now on my wife's laptop at the moment to do this. But what a great opportunity! I had an opportunity not to do work for a couple of days, and rather than thinking, "Oh, awesome! I don't have to work for a couple of days. I can do other things, and I've got the luxury of being able to do that," I sit there and do stuff.
Yeah.
Just to fill my day. And that's what we do. We're taught, and your kids are taught from such a young age that they've got to be doing stuff, whether it's clubs, after school clubs, it's watching TV. We fill the time rather than saying, actually, do you know what? Let's not fill our time. Let's give ourselves some time to sit back and actually think rather than remember and just get frenetic, because thinking is where those big shifts can come in the workplace. And if we're always just doing stuff, and I intentionally use the word stuff, we're just doing stuff to fill our day rather than, wow, let's take some time to truly think. And that's how we begin to solve some of the bigger challenges that we have, that the workplace has, and that society's facing today.
So interesting. This thinking style really relates to how people feel. And it almost is like it takes courage to sit down and do that thinking. But there's that saying that creativity is the opposite of productivity. When we're just pushing through to be productive, we miss those moments to be creative. And creativity actually requires that. It's been called scatter focus. And I'll drop the book link into the show notes, but it's that capacity just to not have any particular task and not be particularly focused on an outcome at one point in time, but let your thoughts wander and things occur.
That's the space that genius exists. When we're talking with students, we talk about returning our genius. Giving people the value of the experiences that we've had in life, because that's what creates a fulfilled life.
Nice.
Giving back. And returning our genius is so important. But that genius can only come from those quiet moments. Because if you've ever looked into how our brains develop and brain waves, we are all operating in panic mode. It's called high-level beta waves, and it's fight or flight all of the time. And if we're in fight or flight all of the time, we're not truly thinking. That thinking in that genius space only occurs when we have settled our brain waves down to that daydreaming state, which is alpha brainwave, and that is actually daydreaming, whereas we fall asleep when we drop to the next level down. But if we're always doing, then we can't be. And when we are being, we can create genius. So we've got to give people space in the workplace in order to allow themselves that thinking time. When in my very, very early military career, I was an intelligence analyst, responsible for looking at the People's Republic of China and then the armed forces of Iran, and we were always given 15% of our working day not to work. It was there just to go and do other things, go and look at other countries, go and read about other countries, because sometimes by doing other things, you find a solution to the problem that you're actually trying to solve. Completely. So, so giving ourselves, giving our teams that time, that capacity to daydream is hugely important.
Yeah. There's some fantastic innovation work done around Google's 20% model. And apparently they're not doing this still, but for a long time, they were known as the company that gave people a day off to do their own thing. And I believe that there's work showing that some of their fantastic, the most fantastic developments in their functionality have come from ideas people had in their 20% time.
Yeah, FedEx do a 48-hour every year, and they work for 24 hours on innovative ideas, and then they have 24 hours of sharing those ideas while eating cake.
That's
So
awesome.
that you, yeah, what a great idea, because it, actually says, one, it says the organization respects that you are in this organization because you've got something to give us rather than just us to take stuff.
Yeah.
But you're creating that freedom for people to just go and try different things. And I
Mm.
think you're celebrating those ideas with chocolate cake. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, why wouldn't you have good ideas?
That's right. I can think of a recipe right now. We'll be coming back to the food question. We always
Okay.
ask you a food question at the end. What what do you see, or how do you advise leaders and their teams when they're taking these ideas? We've been focused very much on the self, the individual, the
Mm-hmm.
person themselves who
Yeah.
can make changes in their own life. And if we look at resilience in teams, there's an additional layer of challenges there, how people communicate, how we manage this complexity around work patterns, how we use technology, and whether we're comfortable with it,
Yep.
just to name a few.
So we always start with self. We start with the certainty of who we are. And once we've done that work, we then move on to belonging. And that's really where it creates organizational resilience. And we teach excuse me, we teach purpose and values. So if an organization doesn't have clear values, then that's a very early piece of work we do with them. Then we talk about leadership, and that's not just the leadership of the organization, but that's everybody's responsibility within the team to lead in their place and at their time.
Right.
And then we talk about communication, because if we're not communicating properly and smartly, then people aren't ever going to belong, and the organization will not be as resilient as it could be. And I mean, the workshops that we run with organizations, it always starts with a conversation about going and seeing someone, getting on a call like Zoom, picking up the phone, and last is email. Very frequently, the organizations have got no concept about all of the other technologies that are actually out there that allow people to communicate, and almost as important as communicating, record that communication so that decisions can be made and the record is kept. So I mean, that's some really deep work that we do with organizations, especially when people are disparate, and that's not just because of the last 2 years where working from home has become far more the norm, but it can be global organizations who have got offices in different time zones, in different countries, speaking different languages. We've really got to be so much smarter about that communication piece. But for me, it all comes down to an organization's purpose, and the values of that organization are going to really drive how resilient an organization can truly be, and how long lasting that organization is going to be as well.
I'd love to extend that idea into
Mm-hmm.
flexibility, because we're seeing a lot of hybrid work. We see a lot of teams, leaders, organizations grappling with and sometimes coming up against barriers to really making flexibility work, making it hum, making it sing. So it's fantastic. So there's productivity, there's not burnout, there's all the great attraction, well-being, and engagement benefits that an organization can experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think about resilience, I think about flexibility to some degree. That flexibility can't exist without that suppleness and that strength that resilience brings. So that you've got a team that concept of a team being able to flex, be able to move that.
And yeah, I mean, look, and again, you're back to my military past. One of the reasons that my teams were successful running covert operations is that ability to be flexible. People often think that militaries are very inflexible because you wear a uniform, you keep to the rules, you do what you're told. But actually, those rules, those values, those standards, let's use values and standards rather than rules, those values and standards enable a flexibility. If you don't have those values and standards, then your people have got nothing to, there isn't a baseline that they can work from to say, well, this is our purpose, this is the direction we're heading in, these are our standards. So that's almost like, the baffles on either side of it. Well, I can head in that direction, upholding these values, but within that, I've got the flexibility to do what I need to do in order to achieve my role, in order to achieve the outcomes I'm looking for. And we become a values-based organization rather than a 9-to-5 organization.
And there's something there about delegated decision making that is in your military example, where the command, if you had to make a decision and run it up to the commander, there's no way you can respond in time for a particular crisis. So you've got to make instant decisions.
And again, that delegation, that allowing the freedom of maneuver, which is a very military phrase, allowing that freedom of maneuver, it's asking for forgiveness rather than permission. Sometimes, all of the time. That's actually how we recognize the powerhouses in our organization. It is how we recognize our future leaders in our organization, because we give them, we trust them enough. We should trust them. Delegate until you're uncomfortable, then delegate some more. But then we verify. So we trust them and we verify. We trust them a bit more. We verify, and those are the people. These are the people we want in our organization. The ones that we trust a little bit and they don't quite make it, well, there's probably still a place for them. It might just be that they're at the beginning of their career, or they're early into the organization, or actually we need what's the polite way of putting it? We need those operators that love the structure and just stick to the structure. But you know what? They're never going to be our future chief execs. They're never going to be those individuals that really drive an organization forward, but we still have a place for them. But that trust and verification is so important, because that allows the chief exec, the leadership team, the time that they need to do their curiosity thinking in order to drive the organization forward.
Yeah, great. I love that concept that we can value people in a different way. Obviously, everyone's valued as a human being, but value what they're bringing and have that perspective around where do they fit.
Yeah, and I think when we recognize that, I mean, we're talking about a specific sort of organization. We've mentioned Google, we've mentioned FedEx, and obviously the British Army. Some people who really need a more traditional working environment, they're unlikely to stay in a more forward-looking environment because they're just not comfortable, and that's fine as well. They'll find their place. But organizations that are looking to be more flexible, and they're looking for potentially different ways of working, different places of working, different technologies. Well, actually, some people just don't enjoy that style of working. It's entirely fine. They will find their place, and it doesn't mean that we're unkind. It doesn't mean we drum them out of the organization. Actually, they come to realize that it's not their place, and it creates the space for other people to come in. But we need all levels of an organization for an organization to work.
Yeah, nice. And so when you think about, I guess if we think, now that we've talked about team, let's think about something practical that people could take with them if they're thinking about resilience in their everyday life and maybe in their team. Are there
Yep.
any kind of first ports of call that you recommend? The things that we've talked about are obviously important. Are there any frameworks or tools that you want to point people to that they could
Well,
find?
yeah, completely. Yeah, I mean, jump onto our website, www.studarling.com, and you will find the rediscovering resilience framework. And the rediscovering resilience is really, really simple. We've more or less covered it. That if we get trapped in a downward spiral, that's losing identity, that becoming ostracized, and becoming self-obsessed, just thinking about the voice in our head all the time. That's that dangerous downward spiral. If we flip it on its head and we create certainty through understanding ourselves, understanding the value that we place on wealth, not just money, but wealth, and also our health, then we've created certainty. That creates a balance in our lives. Then we move on to belonging, which we've just spoken about, values and purpose, leadership and communication. And then as we bring it truly right round the full circle, the upward spiral, we start returning, and we return by collaborating. We return by recognizing our unwritten ground rules, so the other side of values, what gets us stressed. But then we also help people with transitioning and change, how we actually create an environment of change. We can't change other people, but we can create an environment of change. And when we do that, we live a fulfilled life. The first thing I would say to anyone who's interested in increasing resilience or improving their resilience is understand what your values are. What do you stand for? It was easy for me. I left school, joined the British Army, and they gave me half a dozen values. Simple. Until I left. And I left sort of many, many years later. And I left thinking, what the hell are my values? And
Yeah.
over 18 months, I established what my values were, and they've been my values for the last little while. And yeah, it's great because I now know what I stand for. Everyone else knows what I stand for. And that means that I can be a part of a team. I can lead a team. So do some work on your values. And if anyone wants the values exercise that we use, drop me a message, get them to give me a shout, because it's not on the website. But I'll more than happily share the values exercise that we use with one-to-one and with your business workshop where businesses don't have the values. It'll take about half an hour, 45 minutes, but by the end of it, you will have an idea of what your top 3 values are. And that in itself allows you to waken up and better understand yourself every day. So that's the first thing I do. Just do some values work, because it's something that businesses talk about it, but individuals often don't. And it's a really, really powerful tool for understanding personal resilience. And if you're a business owner and you haven't done your values work, well, we can give you the same workbooks as well.
Fantastic. We'll make sure your details are included in the show notes or on the podcast page. And so one kind of quick question before I ask you my favorite food question.
Yep.
You had a lovely comment on your website, someone saying that working with you keep them focused on what is important. So what do you do, or what do you recommend people do to stay focused, seeing as we talked about that so much?
Ask yourself the question, or ask your team the question. I mean, it's really, really simple. And I'm not giving away any trade secrets here. The first question that I ask everybody on a one-to-one call is, right, what's come up this week that's been important to you? And the last question is, right, what's coming up in the week ahead, and why is it important, and how are you going to manage it? That really focuses in the mind. When I do a workshop, I ask 3 questions at the beginning of the day. What's your name? Where are you from? And what does success look like at the end of the day? That focuses me for the whole workshop. We normally start with a list of about a dozen. And it means that I make sure that when we're doing the teaching and when we're doing the conversation, we bring it back to that focus. So really, really simple. What's coming up and what's important for you?
Love it.
Boom. Question,
One
one question, simple.
very simple way to stay focused throughout the whole day. And so,
Completely.
and I don't know whether you like food as much as I do, Stu, but I'm always curious to know what someone's favorite meal is and whether they cook it or whether they have it delivered or whether someone else cooks it for them.
Okay, you can obviously only see me from here down, so that's why you were very polite about how much I like food. I love food.
I have no idea.
I love food. I love cooking food. And if we ever go out to a restaurant and feel the food's a bit subpar, then we'll go home and we'll figure out how to cook it. But my favorite food is pizza.
Oh, and you can cook a mean pizza.
Scratch pizza. So it's scratch pizza. It's my own base. It's my own tomato sauce. There's obviously only one flavor of pizza, pepperoni and cheese. Anything else, I question. But the reason that it's a special treat on Saturday evening. I cook it from scratch. I've now figured out how to cook the perfect pizza on the barbecue to get the heat really right up there into pizza oven sort of heat. So that would be my favorite pizza.
Would fire up in your backyard,
you get
right?
you get that whole feeling. So it's not just about the pizza, it's about the event, which I believe is the importance of food in the in the first place. I read the other day that we seem to think that fast food is normal. It never was until the 20th century. So enjoying that whole journey of creating the dish should be just as important as enjoying it while you're eating it.
What a great link back to stopping to smell the roses, savoring,
totally,
remembering what's important in life. That's fantastic.
Completely.
Thank you. Great to have you on the show. And
thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Fantastic to have you.